Hey everybody, Jimmy Smith back for my picks. This time UFC on ABC 7, ABC card. Of course, the headliner is Sandhagen versus Nurmagomedov. So, start with the main card. Really interesting fights on this one. Some of them really tough to pick. But opening fight on the main card, Joel Alvarez versus Elves Brennen. Elves Brennen is one of those guys. He reminds me of like Nick Lentz, Darren Elkins, one of those guys you don't think he should win. He's not that athletic. His skills aren't super duper sharp. He just seems to have an endless gas tank, a lot of will to win, and he just keeps grinding. And he manages to win when you don't think he would. 3-1 in the UFC, which is very, very impressive. Nobody thought he'd be able to do that. He's one of those guys who just finds a way to win all the time. Joel Alvarez is an interesting one. Came from the Spanish circuit, the regional circuit in Spain. Hadn't fought anybody great. 6'3", which is absolutely incredible to be that height at this weight class. Absolutely unbelievable. But he relies a lot on his ground game because he is 6'3". He pot shots you from the outside. When you get inside, you take him down. He uses his long legs and his guard. Now, Arman Tsarukyan able to lay a beating on him, obviously, because his takedown and ground and pound was so good, and excellent ground game. Also, Damir Ismagulov able to kind of pick him apart from the outside, outstruck him from the outside. So his build creates a lot of problems for fighters, and he uses a lot on the ground. This is one of those where if this goes long and Brennen isn't out of it, and is able to kind of win win round number 3 and make it a war after the second round, maybe he can win a long fight. But physically, he's just going to have trouble with a 6'3" guy who knows how to box on the outside and use a submission game on the ground. I got to go with, and when you look at the odds, Alvarez a slight favorite, almost 2-1 in this fight. DraftKings, let me check that real quick. DraftKings has him at, minus 166, 1.5 favorite. Probably Joel Alvarez, I would say. I would go by submission. I think if you're going with Alvarez, you're probably going with the under, which is plus 130. Make some money on that. So I go with Joel Alvarez, and I would go with the under on that one. McKenzie Dern versus Lupi Godinez. McKenzie Dern, one of the most frustrating fighters on the UFC's roster, period. Why? She's incredibly talented. Low fight IQ. She just tends to make a lot of tactical mistakes, and she doesn't always play to her strengths. One of her problems is she has world-class jiu-jitsu, and she seems to always want to prove she can do other stuff, right? She always wants to prove that she can stand and bang or prove that she's a mixed martial artist rather than work on the timing of her takedown and stick to her strengths. And it's cost her huge. This was a fighter that a lot of people thought was going to be a contender, and she is 2-4 in the last 6 fights. Losses to Marina Rodriguez, Yan Xiaonan, Jessica Andrade, Amanda Lemos. It's this unwillingness to stick to her real strengths or build up her MMA game, but build it around her jiu-jitsu, right? You're not going to get anywhere having just one skill these days, but you can kind of build the rest of your skill set around that, right? Be a kickboxer, but be enough of a kickboxer to get a fight to the ground. Be a wrestler, but be a kind of safe wrestler to get the fight to the ground so you can use your jiu-jitsu. That's what you need to do. And she has a problem always trying to prove that she's a mixed martial artist, always trying to prove she can go toe-to-toe with fighters she shouldn't go toe-to-toe with. So it's very frustrating to watch her fight. She has the potential to really be great, but she can't put it all together. Lupita Godinez, solid coming off a loss to Vina Jandiroba. That snapped a win streak of 4. But when you look at that 4, Cynthia Calvillo, Emily Ducote, right? Tabitha Ricci. Tough, but not great. The names that she's fought, meaning Angela Hill and Vina Jandiroba, she's lost in that period of time. So she has a problem with step-up competition. Unfortunately, this is a step-up kind of fight. I still believe that when it comes to physical talent, McKenzie Dern has a lot of it. All right, she's Megaton Diaz's daughter. She's been grappling since she was an infant. The problem is the step up for McKenzie Dern. When she goes to those next level, God, if you win, you can get a title shot. She tends to fall flat in those. She does beat the Godinezes of the world. She tends to beat that level of opposition. So I would say, obviously, whenever you're dealing with McKenzie Dern, you think, how is she going to win? Usually by submission is your best bet. Looking at it right now, McKenzie Dern is minus 120, so it's a pretty close fight. I would take McKenzie Dern with this, plus 100 for Lupita Godinez. The under is plus 190, under 2.5 rounds. So, hey, McKenzie Dern by submission, get her under 2.5 rounds, get plus 190 on that. I definitely go with McKenzie Dern on this one. McKenzie Dern with the under, that would be my combination on this one because she's not a huge favorite. Tony Ferguson, Michael Kessa. DraftKings has Tony Ferguson plus 440. Michael Kessa minus 600. Usually with odds like that, you got to go with Michael Kessa, but you just can't have faith in Tony Ferguson. I haven't had faith in Tony Ferguson in a long time. As the competition in the beginning, right, when you're losing to Justin Gaethje, you're losing to Charles Oliveira, you can convince yourself that, okay, those are great guys. If you drop down the competition level. As the competition level has gotten worse, he's gotten worse. He's been consistently below the competition level, even though it's gotten easier than, obviously, the Justin Gaethjes of the world. So he's taking on Michael Kessa, a guy who took some time off, who was like on the verge of contendership, like he could do something, and then back-to-back losses, hasn't looked great in his last few fights, took some time off, needed to revitalize himself. Obviously, the difficulty here is that Chiessa's strength was his takedown in his ground game. Well, submitted by Vicente Luque, lost a unanimous decision to Sean Brady, a lot of that on the ground, and then submitted by Kevin Holland. So he's getting beat where he's kind of at his best. Now, those are all tough, physical, strong guys at 170, for sure. Tony Ferguson is a puffed-up 55er who's on the downside of his career. So the fact is that happening at 170, and Michael Kessa is just a bigger, stronger, physical guy. Now, he used to fight at 155. He's not a huge 170, but he's bigger than Tony Ferguson. I got to go with Michael Kessa. The smart pick would be by decision, simply because Kessa needs a win. He might be out of the UFC with a loss if he loses, especially if he loses to a shot Tony Ferguson. So he might fight in a conservative way. Like, he's on top, all right, work the ground. Like he did against Neil Magny, right? Tall, tricky, 170-pounder. Took him down, stayed real safe, went for the simple guard passes, simple ground and pound, didn't go for anything big. I think that's exactly what he's going to do. Exactly. Play it safe. Hey, man, short little shots, nice little elbows. Don't go crazy for a submission on a guy who can be tough to catch. I know, obviously Diaz caught him, but still has a decent submission game. You don't want to go mess around with this guy. So keep it safe, win the decision. The under is minus 110. The over is minus 120, pretty much a coin flip. I would go with the over on this one because I think Kessa plays it safe. So go Kessa by decision and take the over. Marlon Vera, Deiveson Figueiredo. This is a tough one. Deiveson Figueiredo minus 142 to Marlon Vera's plus 120. Big fan of Marlon Chito Vera. I like him a lot. I think he's an excellent fighter. I thought the title fight against Sugar Sean O'Malley, he just looked flat. Didn't try to do anything. Wasn't willing to pull the trigger. And this is a guy who his strength a lot of time is he goes for it, man. He really goes for it. He didn't go for it at all against Sugar Sean O'Malley. And one thing I've noticed a lot is when someone gets, especially their first title shot, and it's one-sided and they don't do well, the next bounce-back fight tends to be really, really hard, right? You got all the way there. This was a guy you had beaten before, and you got housed. An easy unanimous decision. You just kind of question yourself, right? I got all the way there. It's like, the post-Super Bowl slump when the losing team typically doesn't do well the next year. Similar thing in fighting. A lot of times that fight afterward, mentally it's a hard hump to get over. I like Marlon Vera a lot, but didn't look good his last time out. Deiveson Figueiredo did. Now, Deiveson Figueiredo, of course, taking on Cody Garbrandt, a guy who's on a slide himself after beating Rob Font. He's shown potential, real potential at 135, but this is still a step-up guy for him. I think this is a level more difficult than Cody Garbrandt or Rob Font. So it's a step up, but I do think Deiveson Figueiredo is ready for it. He's tall, he's big, getting a little bit older at 36 years old, but no sign yet of slowing down. He does have speed, he has versatility. And when Marlon Vera, even in his win over Rob Font, Marlon Vera landed with power to win rounds. He did get outlanded a lot. And that's the one thing is Deiveson Figueiredo tends to be a very busy fighter. So even in rounds when I think a lot of it's going to be stand-up, Deiveson Figueiredo has a way of kind of out-voluming opponents. And Marlon Vera has a problem of getting out-volumed. So I think style-wise, this favors Deiveson Figueiredo a little. I would say Deiveson Figueiredo probably by decision. So moving on to the next one. But it is an intriguing fight. Shara Bullet versus Michael Oleksiejczuk. If you caught my short, which got some traction talking about Shara Bullet, what I said was I don't think Shara Bullet is anything special. I'm not saying he's a bad fighter. I'm saying he looks like a solid mid-level guy, but man, he gets hit a lot. And he has the look. He has an exciting style. He's a good kickboxer. He's not great, not world-class. Good kickboxer. Excellent look, but man, he takes a lot of punches. I don't think that catches up with him. until he gets those next level guys, right? Those former champions, those former challengers, those guys are going to give him a problem. I think he beats most mid-level guys. Olic is a mid-level guy who's relied a lot on his chin. He's relied a lot on his durability, his ability to come forward. His punches don't have a ton of snap on him. He's lost his last two. I think Olic was just a big 185er. He was kind of a plotting 205er, went back down came down to 185, and he doesn't have the athleticism. He tends to get rocked and knocked down and then finish by submission. He's hard to knock out, actually. So it's going to be interesting to see if Bullet can actually knock this guy out. But he does get knocked down a lot, right? He finds himself getting clipped, getting hurt, and then finished on the ground. I would say Bullet is a good pick. By knockout would be my pick. What are the odds right now? Bullet -2.5 favorite. The under is -105, so you can do well on the under. And I think under's 1.5. Yeah, I think Bullet catches him under 1.5 rounds, but Bullet not going to make a ton of money on it, -245. I still think he wins. Corey Sandhagen. Umar Nurmagomedov. Yes, Umar Nurmagomedov is undefeated. Yes. But this is a step up in terms of opposition for him. Tends to get it done on the ground. Has moments of power. But the issue here to me, when I look at Corey Sandhagen, only 32 years old. Been through a lot of very difficult fights, but he isn't in the late 30s yet. He isn't quite slowing down. He has an unpredictable style. He can be very difficult to catch in time and figure out. His opponent, Nurmagomedov, is undefeated, but hasn't taken on as many contenders as Sandhagen. Sandhagen is very, very tough mentally. He's used to 5-rounders. This is what he does. This is where he's at his best. He's very tricky with his style. He can throw knees from a lot of different angles. Very, very tall. And he's a massive underdog. 3-1 underdog in this fight. That is why I am going with Corey Sandhagen. Yes, his opponent's undefeated, but when it comes to the guys he's beaten, Sandhagen has faced everyone. And other than a really terrible performance against Aljamain Sterling when he got taken down and submitted early, he's looked good in all those fights. I do believe he beat TJ Dillashaw. Did lose to Petr Yan, but he's fought the best of the best for years. And he's always been the odd man out. He's always been the guy just out of a title shot. It's a very, very deep division. He's always lost right when it could have been a win, could have gotten him somewhere. So incredible physical talent, but he's never quite gotten there. This is his last opportunity, and he knows it. And as good as Nurmagomedov can be and is, because he's undefeated, he does rely a lot on his takedown. And once again, outside of that disastrous performance against Aljamain Sterling, this is a guy who angles very, very well, very hard to take down, very hard to impose your will. Not just on him physically, because he's tall and rangy and tricky. He's also mentally tough. He's been in some very tough, grinding wars. That's why I'm going in a huge upset with Corey Sandhagen in the main event to make you some money. All right, I'll be around Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the fights.